Okay, hello and welcome everybody. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com, and thanks for joining today for the event on CRM user adoption. Today we are joined by Chuck Ingram, Corey Johnson, and Danielle Parks of Tribridge. And to get things started with today's event, please know that we do invite you in the audience to add your feedback and ask questions during the presentation. You can use the Q&A panel that you see to the right of the presentation window to ask your questions of our speakers. So without further delay, let me hand it off to Danielle Parks. Danielle. Danielle, I think you are on mute. I'm actually having a bit of a problem taking you off mute at the moment. So bear with me for just one sec. I cannot hear you. Danielle, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Thanks again, Jason. I really appreciate it, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Jason is going to go ahead and put up the results to those poll questions, so thank you for taking the time to answer those. Hopefully you can kind of all see those right now. Now, Jason covered a few webinar details, but I also wanted to mention that we will be recording today's presentation, so I know we had a few people chatting in about that as well. In addition, Corey, if you could just move to the next slide, we are going to, as you exit today's webinar, a survey is going to pop up. So if you could take a few moments and just fill that out, we'd greatly appreciate the feedback on today's presentation. We will enter your name into our quarterly drawing for a $100 Visa gift card. Now, for those of you who are on today that aren't as familiar with Tribridge, we are a national technology service firm with over 600 team members. Our customers, as well as our team members, are spread throughout the United States, including all of us on this call today. We are Microsoft's top partner and support the largest Dynamics customer base in North America, and we've been honored to win Microsoft Dynamics Worldwide Partner of the Year 4 times out of the last 6 years, which is actually unprecedented. Now, at this point, I'd like to introduce our presenters today, as Jason mentioned. Chuck Ingram is our Senior Director of our Dynamics CRM practice at Tribridge, and he has more than 20 years of CRM technology and consulting experience. He's very passionate about helping companies utilize CRM to maximize their customer experiences, and he's going to talk more about that today. Corey Johnson is also joining us, and he is our CRM solutions consultant. He's got more than 15 years experience in customer relationship management, specializing in technical pre-sales and solution architecture. And Corey was also instrumental in the development of our Tribridge Adoption Essentials solution for Dynamics CRM. So without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and pass things off to Chuck to get things started. Chuck? Chuck might be on mute too. Let's just see. Yeah.
Hello?
There we go. I hear you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle and Jason. And thanks to everybody on the phone for your time today. As Danielle said, I'm Chuck Ingram. I'm at Tribridge. We are indeed spread around the U.S. I do happen to be calling in from Tampa, Florida. Yes, it's warm and don't hate, I would say. I do look after our CRM practice at Tribridge. I have been working with CRM since they started using the term. And you'll also hear from Corey Johnson. He's a solution consultant and a product manager in our team, and focused on adoption. We try to kind of kick things off, we try to come to our customers with a point of view. And it's interesting, it happens to align with what we're going to talk about in our meeting today. Our CRM team, we try to help our customers get the most out of their investment in CRM and in turn deliver amazing customer experiences to their customers. And we do this by focusing on industry solutions and best practices, rapid business transformation, business process transformation, I should say. And finally, we kind of try to challenge our customers a little bit to think a little more along the long term and to kind of have a plan for driving adoption. Because when it comes down to it, a happy team member who likes using the technology they have are going to deliver the best customer experience. So to kind of get our heads in the right place, I want everybody on the phone to think back to a time where you had a great customer experience. And think about what it felt like. You know, what did you do about it? Did you go home and tell your spouse? Did you tell a friend? Did you tweet about it? Would you go back to them? And then in turn, think back to a time where your team alerted you that they'd given somebody a great customer experience. It's like, man, you couldn't wait to share that email with everybody you knew, and you're copying your boss and everybody in the company on the email. It's like you wanted to bottle it and replicate it and send it to Mythbusters for them to analyze it and replicate it and buy a 3D printer and print it. I mean, it just was really, really an important thing. And you know, how do you do that? And so what's happened over, I guess, the last 20 years I've been doing this is companies have started to see the value in getting closer relationships with their customers. That's pretty obvious. They see the value in creating better customer experiences for their customers. They want to replicate that perfect relationship, that perfect sort of interaction where you exceed what the customer wanted. And these companies have started to make more and more investments in technology to really help them do that. And the leading technology that here is customer relationship management. For folks who may not know, CRM is defined as the process of building your people and your processes and technologies around your customer. And in my time in this industry, it's grown to about a $20 billion industry. Unfortunately, one thing I've seen in my time, there's a whole bunch of stats you can look up on this, or we could provide them to you guys in a white paper. Across the industry, customers are not happy about half the time with these CRM implementations. And we've done a lot of analysis here at Tribridge, and we have a point of view on this. And remember, CRM is people, processes, and technology. We believe that over time, CRM projects have started to be treated a little bit more like pure technology projects. And things happen when you leave out the other two pieces. So when you skip the people part, you know, think about the time you called a help desk, and it felt like the agent was sort of clearly getting unnaturally prompted to ask you questions, and you're wanting to jump ahead, or you're wanting to stop them and say, no, that's not right, or get to it. You know, so neither customers or users want to feel like they're, quote unquote, doing CRM. If it feels like they're doing CRM, more than likely they're going to start using a legal pad or some other system. So user adoption suffers, and your company can't measure stuff. You don't have the data. On the other extreme, you can give customers bad experiences. You ask them the same question twice. We've all had that experience. What happens when you skip the process part? So we mentioned the focus on technology has sort of created a CRM project approach that's more like you would do on a pure technology approach. The implementation teams talk about things these days like forklifts and lift and drop and et cetera. So they want to take the new system and sit it there and put all the information from your old system and all the metadata from your old system and drop it into the new. And Corey and I know each other, and we're friends, and it would almost be like putting my furniture into Corey's house. I'm a little older than Corey, and I have older kids than Corey. So I think where I have a home office, Corey might have a kid's bedroom. And if you do it that way, it's awkward, and people aren't able to use it. And furthermore, people don't have a plan down the road to make those changes. So it kind of feels pretty kludgy. But, hey, we went fast. So, you know, I think our point here is we want folks to, it's okay to go fast, but we want you to have a plan going forward. So ideally, CRM should be as unobtrusive and, let's say, relevant as possible, almost like invisible, where, to use the furniture analogy, the furniture is where it should be, in the right room for the right task at the right time. And that's what we want to do. So there is good news. In our experience, we've established and learned some best practices that we believe do work. Those best practices are to plan for periodic course corrections from the start. Just plan for it. Set measurable goals for your CRM program. start with industry context, focus on user experience, and anticipate and measure your customer's experience. So Corey's going to talk some more about these key principles, and he's going to mention a program that we put together using these principles, and we're starting to use with some of our customers with some really, really amazing results. So with that, I'll turn over to Corey.
The East and West Coast. Unlike Chuck, and can you guys hear me okay?
Gotcha.
All right, fantastic, thank you. So unlike Chuck, where it's, what do you say, it was 70 degrees down there, I'm in Charlotte, and it's 45 here, but we had about 4 inches of snow last night. So for a person in South Carolina to get 4 inches of snow, that was quite a change shock to the system. But anywho, so as we get into our implementation methodology and we get into kind of what it takes to drive CRM success, as Chuck mentioned, there's a bunch of steps that we're going to go through today. And really it starts off with a very simple point, and that is we need to define a vision at the beginning of the project. And we hear this kind of sometimes as doing this very high level kind of fluffy thing that someone says, and then it disappears. It goes into a drawer and it's never brought back out. The point of the application, the point of any technology is to fit a need, a goal within an organization. And you want that vision to be something that is maintained, it is kept up to speed, and it is socialized within the organization so people understand not only what is the technology I'm supposed to use, but why is this technology so important to us? And as you can see, one of the examples, just an example of a vision statement, the whole point being we want to make our solutions, our software, our technologies, something that bring us closer to customers and that provides us more value than the value that it takes us to put into it. Now, CRM solutions are also more than just technology, and a lot of times when we do an implementation, we tend to roll the project back to roll projects down to very simple technology things. I need an account record. I need a contact record. Well, that's just one component of CRM. And CRM success is really driven by multiple pieces. One of them, of course, is the technology, but it's mainly driven by the people and the processes that we build around our customers. And when we take that information and we consolidate it into a technology solution that serves up the information appropriately, then we have a recipe for success. And we don't just have technology that becomes exceedingly expensive shelfware. And there's statistics all over the place that you can read about the success rate of technology and also the time frame that people have for using software. And it's interesting, if you look at one study I saw recently talking about new technology changes and as technology is brought into place, the focus that people put on the technology, well, it's a shiny button. It's a cool new thing to look at. And at go live, it's awesome. But 2 and 3 and 4 and 6 months down the road, if you look at the behavior that people have, has it met their needs, or is it now something sitting back on a shelf and people revert it back to the notepad and steno book like Chuck was talking about in his comments a couple of minutes ago? So really what we need to do is we need to take the technology and we need to look at several different things to make it a part of our lives that improves our day-to-day interactions and that makes it something that we get more value from it than the effort we put into it. And that's really the goal we want to have for any of the solutions. If I can advance the slide here. All right, so we saw the wagon wheel. Chuck was mentioned the high-level points, but the first one that we're going to talk about in this wagon wheel as we go through our afternoon today is the content or the concept of planning for course corrections. Now, what does that mean? Well, no matter how good a job you do defining your system requirements, no matter how good you do at setting your vision ahead of time, things are going to change. You know, it was interesting that if you looked at the studies of the Apollo missions and they went to the moon, those rockets were off course over 90% of the time, and they were constantly making tiny corrections in order to even get to the moon in the first place. And without those minor corrections, it never would have got there. It would have flown off to Mars or hit the sun or something like that. Well, CRM projects are the same way. Project success doesn't end with go live. That's actually when project success begins. And we need to have periodic course corrections along the way. And what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, remember that vision I talked about at the beginning, which is a core hallmark of a good systems implementation, is to figure out why are we doing this? And really challenge your organization. Do we need this solution? Do we need this technology? Why are we thinking about this? Well, once we've determined that vision, again, we don't set these things in stone. We have to review it. We have to revise it over time, and we have to continuously go back to it and say, are we getting the value of the software that we wanted? Are we seeing the metrics? Are we seeing the increase in customer satisfaction, the increase in revenue from our high-value customers? Whatever those reasons are that we implemented this technology, are we seeing the value that we expected to get from it? And are the users that are using it getting the value that we wanted to provide to them? And then finally, what we want to do when we're planning for course corrections is it's important to say we're going to correct the course, but how? Why? What do we do? Well, we need to track our progress towards that achievement. So maybe it's if you're a sales manager or a vice president of sales, and your goal is to increase your pipeline accuracy, and you want to get 50% to 60% accuracy in your pipeline. Those are things that we can track progress towards. We can see that. Or if we're in the customer service department, we want to be able to determine an increase in customer satisfaction from a 4.2 to a 4.4. How are we doing that? Are the tools allowing us to be that way? The second item in there, and I kind of started to speak to it already, is set measurable goals. So what do we mean by measurable goals? Well, exactly how are people using this system? What pain points do we have within the application currently, within our customers currently? Is it that our sales reps are spending 3 hours doing research all over the place from internal data as well as external systems to find enough information to call a new customer? Or is it that our management team has no idea what the accuracy of the pipeline is, so they can't forecast revenue accurately? Those types of pain points we need to document, we need to identify what they are, and then identify business goals around them. Ideally, we want to quantify what our goal is. Instead of just saying, I want to have a tighter relationship with a customer, put some real numbers behind it, something that we can actually measure towards. I want to have 40% more customer interaction points in the next 6 months. Or we need to have 30% fewer repeat support calls. Whatever those happen to be. And then prioritize what those goals are. What are the most important metrics in the organization? Well, once we've done that, once we've identified as an organization what those goals are, we can put tools and metrics in place to help match that and monitor that. Not only do we want to set goals that are achievable, but we also want to make sure that people understand very clearly what the goals are and why those goals are important to the organization. The goals have to be a top-down driven focus in an organization, and management, senior management, middle team leaders, all have to be able to identify and articulate what these goals are and why there's a value to the organization for having them, as well as live themselves and actually follow up with the information and have repeatable feedback to the employees and the users of the systems that they're hitting it, whether they've made 50 phone calls and they've recorded all 50 phone calls in the system for the day, or they've advanced their pipeline from $10 million in phase 1 to phase 2 in the pipeline. Whatever those things are that you're putting a goal in the system for, make sure you're recognizing people for it, you're following up with it, and you're able to show them we're seeing the value of the work that's being done. So another area that we want to talk just briefly about here is the whole concept of an industry context. Now, I've deployed Dynamics CRM over the last, Dynamics CRM specifically, since it came out as a version 1 product. And we've worked with it in a number of different areas. Well, it's very important to understand that a single CRM system doesn't mean the same thing to different organizations. When I've worked in the public sector, in the government, state and local government, federal government space, if you were to bring a CRM system into the United States Treasury or into the California Department of Corrections and show them how to use accounts and opportunities and marketing lists, you get very, very little value from it. But those same capabilities when branded and adjusted and termed properly, become exceedingly important for tracking customer interactions, trusting correspondence requests, or tracking inmate movement in a prison facility. So the concept being adjust the industry tools, start with an industry goal, have the right terminology put in place, and make sure that the system can fit what every person is doing. Now, in a more of a micro concept, it also means within an organization, realize that different groups within your organization don't all have the same goals. Just like I mentioned, what we track at the Department of Corrections is very different from what a Fortune 100 company is going to track. But even within the organization, what IT needs to use a CRM system for versus sales versus internal sales versus external sales are all different. Well, the best design systems aren't one where you say, this makes for a good report for management. But we have a tool where an end user can say, I can't believe that how I could get through my day without it. Let's make sure that we're setting the tools up so they're fitting the users, and that we have the point of view from the beginning that the user experience for each focus area is unique, personalized, and, oh, by the way, very, very beneficial to them. So we've had a lot of success in some of the different areas we've worked in just by taking that particular approach and really taking it down to the user level. And when you think about, there's a couple of different campaigns and behavior changes that you're going to see along the way, but once you get a person hooked in, once they realize, okay, I can see how this is going to work for me, then they start to look at using this new application. But that start doesn't do a lot. As humans, we are typically resistant to change, and we typically fall back to our habits. And so even if we've got the best design system in the world, even if we have the most easy to use thing that's out there, we still have to reinforce the behavior. We still have to praise the people that are doing it properly, and we have to remove the chances that people have to go back to where they were before. And we need to take on the context of complete change and a continuous change within the application. This is not a IT project so much as it is a program. And with the difference, of course, being as a project, you've got a start and a stop date, we begin, we end. In a program, it never ends. And that's the idea within the CRM tools like this, especially when we're talking about industry context or departmental context. How do we continue to evolve? How do we continue to add better and better, tools into the fold for our user group? It's funny, if you talk to a sales manager at the end of the year when they're doing their next year planning, next year forecasting, you almost never hear someone say, well, our goal for last year was $10 million, so this year it's going to be $10 million. It's always something bigger, something better. Well, we're going to expand into this area. It's not $10 million again this year, it's going to be 11 or 12 or 15 million this year. Well, the reason is they're stretching, they're changing, they're evolving their business needs. And in the same context, the CRM application needs to do exactly the same thing as well. Let's talk about the user experience just a little bit here, and really what these first pieces, these first three parts of the wagon wheel that I call them came into place are really leading up to this whole context of what is the user experience. Well, the biggest thing that we need to think about when we're talking about user design, and there's been a lot of talk about it, and there's blogs all over the place and articles and whole books have been written on it. In fact, I think there's entire college classes and majors you can take in software design for user experience. But to distill it down into the simplest context, we need to make sure that we are providing a solution for users that gives them more value and gives them more information than what they put into it. So if you think about, basic terms, if I'm doing something, if I get more out of it than I put into it, I'm going to feel value from it, I'm going to appreciate it more, and I'm going to be able to go forward. So things like having the system deliver contextual information and simplify what's out there. We know that there's tons of information. We can go on information overload in 100 different ways when it comes to researching our customers, finding information for them. But how do we cut through all the noise? How do we find the right piece of information at the right time? And that's the goal of the system, is to put that user experience So we're delivering context as it needs to happen. Simple things like next best actions. So using the process flows within Dynamics CRM and the process steps to make sure that we know what is our next step in the close process. Where do we go to resolve this case? How do we get this customer onboarded? We need to get people to quit hunting for information. So you can see over on the right side of the screen, we have this whole concept of insights, and this is part of the Dynamics CRM application that's available now. And this brings up social information. It brings contextual information to CRM. So, you know, 5 years ago and before that, even 2 years ago, a CRM system really was a place to store data about a customer. It was a place to simply log what you've done, log interactions, log sales, log prospects, and that sort of thing. But the last few years, we have seen a tremendous amount of information available to customers now that it's never been out there before. And in doing that, we are now able to use the CRM tool to give us more information than we put into it. You know, with the whole concept of insights, when I look for a new account, I can simply put an account record name in the system and hit save. That's all I do. And then insights will augment that with name and address, number of employees, head count, different contacts within the organization. And it makes the system go out, find that information, and return it for me. So my level of effort on task goes down, but the amount of information available to me goes way, way up. Same thing, we can do different searches within the application. So not only am if I'm hunting for, you know, a particular customer like Tribridge, I've got the record showing here for, you know, IT firms. If that's an industry that I'm selling to, well, we can do things like find other companies that have a similar SIC code, have different companies in the same geography, and the system can serve that up for me as well. So now not only do I know more about Tribridge, the account I'm particularly hunting, but it also shows me that here's 4 other organizations that are also in the IT space in Florida that I can also start marketing towards and start working towards. And think about that in terms of time savings and value add. When, you know, in the past, if you'd spend 4 or 5 or 6 hours doing a hunt through Hoover's and Experian and LexisNexis and all the other places that you have to go and on the company's website to figure out who they are and what they do, if now you just type in a name into your CRM tool and it returns all the stuff about them, how much value you've given to your sales team in just a few seconds and how much more effective they can be. And you reduce the amount of time they spend in their research from hours to seconds, that's a big productivity win. And that's a thing that makes people say, now I can't live without this tool, now I've got to start using it again. Okay, so the next thing we want to do as we're doing this again is make sure that we're, to the extent possible, and if you want to distill it down to, it's kind of the funny commercial statement. How many people have seen the commercial for the Staples Easy button? Do you remember that that commercial that came out a long time ago when the lady walked into the Staples and said, "I need something that ends with "er," and the gentleman behind the desk hit the Staples, hit the Easy button, and he said, "Oh, you mean a wireless route?" And he gave it to her. She said, "Yes, that's what I meant." And like Chuck mentioned, that's a great user experience. That's a way to really make people say, now I can't live without this tool. I've got a great thing, and let me tell other people about it. And that's really what we're going for here. All right, so our next topic, as we move into our next area, now that's our user experience, but now talk about the customer experience a little bit. Well, again, customer experience is things that comes and goes in a lot of different ways. The customer experience in one respect is what is your customer's experience? What is the user of the system's experience with the software? But it's also what is your customer's experience with you at the organization? So as I mentioned just a second ago with the whole concept of finding information, I was talking to a prospect yesterday, actually. We're working through the CRM solution and talking about some different value props for it. And one of the things that we can show is if you're about to go to a customer that you haven't spoken to before, but in 1 minute or in 5 minutes before you talk to them, you can realize and find information that the CEO just changed. They just had a new product launch. Their quarterly earnings were just popped out. These items that now are in front of you, you got great detail about the organization. But if you can also do a search inside the system and see, oh, wow, here's a bunch of information about the industry as a whole. Overall, the industry is changing. This thing has just happened in the industry. This new focus area has come up. Maybe there's a new product launch with one of the competitors that you're talking to, of the person that you're talking to. To be able to have that information at your fingertips when you go to talk to a prospect makes people say, oh my gosh, these people get it. They understand it. And again, that's the whole concept of having a great user experience. How do we bring that into the technology? Well, again, we find information and we put it together in the right order, and we're going to see a little bit of that in the couple of minutes ahead here. So what has Tribridge done specifically to focus on some of these different areas? Well, as Chuck mentioned, we've kind of come up with our own program called Adoption Essentials. And the concept behind here is that we want to make sure that we're empowering our customers with the technology to support the needs that we talked about coming up here. So working through our wagon wheel, and I'm going to start off at the 1 o'clock position on our wagon wheel again, the concept of customer engagement. As we mentioned, you don't want to just create the software, put it on a shelf, and hope that someone takes it down and uses it once in a while. We need it to be an immersive experience. We need to make sure that there is constant feedback and interaction throughout the organization to let people know, one, the value of the solution, but also the fact that they are getting value from it. So doing things like having great marketing campaigns internal to the organization, letting people see the value that this new software solution is putting out there. Having your champions go out and show that there is value coming out from the application, how they are better for it. And having continuous and ongoing training internally to let people see how to continue to use the application more and more effectively. And finally, it's a matter of, as I mentioned before, not letting people go back to what they were doing in the first time. So if a person is starting to use the application, that's awesome. But just like we all have started a diet at some point or an exercise program at some point, without constant coaching, constant reinforcement, and constant engagement from different people, we're going to fall back. You know, we can all go and go and do push-ups and sit-ups and go run around the streets near our house if we want to. But are we going to have the same amount of weight loss or get in the same kind of shape as if we had a coach or personal trainer working with us, or even a running buddy to help motivate us in those days we don't feel like it? With our customer engagement sections, we actually will sit down with you 4 times a year, and we're going to talk about your vision for the application. We're going to talk about the good and the bad and the ugly about what's going on. And we're going to work together to find ways to align where you are with where your vision for the application is, and sometimes change the vision. Maybe we need to adjust it or increase the scope or move it around a little bit. Scooting down to kind of our 4 o'clock position, I'll call it, we have our Tribridge neighborhood. Well, one of the things about an organization, as we talked about before, is there's a lot of different people in every organization. Some people really get new technology, some people don't. Some people like change, some people don't. But everyone has an opinion. As Chuck mentioned, everyone has a point of view. And when we we push out the concept of a neighborhood, what we're talking about is letting people within an organization collaborate with one another, give them a mechanism to socialize content, good and bad, about what the system is doing for them and what things they would like to be able to do or are doing so that they can be more effective in their job. Now, these Yammer neighborhoods that we set up are also monitored by Tribridge. So when the technology piece of the question comes into play, or when the industry piece of the question comes into play, we have technicians, we have consultants, we have staff that are very, very experienced in different areas. And we can interact with your organization and provide content and ideas and thoughts for how we can go ahead and help move the system forward in different ways. Now, our premier field engineering team at the 6 o'clock hour is our help desk, and we've got some really, really good people dedicated to supporting applications. And CRM, thankfully, is an application that doesn't break very often. But when it does, it's good to know that there's someone to help out, and that when things go bump in the night, there's someone to turn a flashlight on and scare off the bad guys. Well, what it also means is we've got people to help you think about different ideas. Maybe it's not a break and I've got error 1, 2, 3, 4, which is kind of the classic help desk kind of message. But we have industry experts that when you talk about, hey, I'd like to change my workflow, I'd like to change my business process, our field engineering team can be first responders to help figure out what's going on. Where do we go to help give you information and insights to get you in the next, in that next direction? Actually, at Tribridge, our field engineering team is led by a Microsoft CRM MVP. He's one of 35, I think, or 39 CRM MVPs worldwide. And the team he leads is excellent and well-trained in all kinds of different parts of the application. So where we go with this is we're not a shop that just does an install and leaves you to your devices, but we're there to help you. We're there to support you in the long run. And that really, really does make people feel very comfortable about the technology and the application that's out there. Moving over to the 8 o'clock position on our wagon wheel here is the concept of a training center. Now, we think about training, and in the old days, if you go 5 or 10 or so years back in time or more than that, if you talk to an organization and they were going to implement an enterprise class application, they would look at spending weeks in a classroom learning the new technology and how do I move this field or how do I move that field around or whatever. Well, the reality is nowadays technology has simplified and streamlined itself, and people are more comfortable with the basics of how do I move a mouse and those kinds of things. So that depth of technology training isn't required anymore, but very focused business process training. It's not so much of where do I, how do I click on a mouse, but when do I do this? How do I do that? And those kinds of questions come up, and they come up over and over again. Well, one of the things that we're very proud of at Tribridge is the fact that we have a training program that doesn't just give you go-live level training, but is there for you for the long run. And we have got on-demand training built into our application so that users of the application maybe not have been there for a while and that may have not used Advanced Find or marketing lists or whatever it is can come in and watch the training videos and see how to do something so they can get up to speed faster. But also if you're in an environment where you've got an amount of turnover, we quite often in an implementation, let's hit go live and we'll train everybody on the system, which is cool. And then I come back a year later and half the people that I trained are moved on, whether they got promoted or they've gone to another department or they've left the organization or whatever it is. All that institutional knowledge is gone. We have to start over and do a new round of training, which gets expensive, but it also gets difficult because you're losing a lot in the meantime. So by having on-demand training, which is focused on the application, that works really, really well to make sure people can see exactly where they are. Now, our training center, because part of what Tribridge does, and Chuck mentioned this at the very beginning, we have a human capital management component to our organization. We actually can do contextual inline training for your organization that is absolutely specific to you with video training, help desk style stuff. But the point being, bringing that content directly into your application. So when you need the information that is served up to you as a task prompt, as a window pop-up, as a whatever it is, or going out and watching a video so you can get through your training program, those things are incredibly valuable for people to be able to do. Now, in addition to that, we also have our webcast. So as we mentioned before, recurring training is absolutely paramount. This is a system that's going to be with you for the long term. So you want to make sure that you put a training plan in place that every month you bring out something new, something interesting. As we talked about before, having the experts at a brown bag lunch talk about something cool that they're doing. Well, we have that as well through our Power User webcast. So every month we have some sort of different topic, whether it's how to interact CRM with SharePoint, how to get more out of your social search, how to use social insights or social search within the application. And these monthly training sessions on advanced topics help people to understand that there's a lot more that the application can do. So when your organization is, and rightfully should be doing something of a crawl, walk, run type of implementation, understand that the walk and the run are out there and you can get past that crawl stage, and we're going to put tools in place to help you with that. And finally, in our wagon wheel, kind of at the 11 o'clock position here, CRM is a great application. It's a foundation that can go in almost every direction that you can think of. And as you saw about 6 slides ago, we have different industries that we support, from public sector to professional services to healthcare. But no matter how far Microsoft built out the product, it can only go so far until it can't be everything for everyone. But that's where other solutions come into place. That's where features and functionality can be added on by partners like Tribridge or other vendors to help extend the product in certain directions. So if you want to do marketing automation, instead of going out to an external tool and doing email and tracking it, you can see that stuff directly inside of CRM, so you're not having to leave the application. We've built an extensive library of tools in addition to the ISVs that we support through the, I don't remember even how many hundreds of implementations we've done as a company, but we've come up with a list of ISVs that work really, really well and solve really important problems. And we have a list of applications that we've built ourselves that have come up from customers over and over and over again that we now provide to our customers as part of our Adoption Essentials program. It's what we do to make sure that we're equipping our customers with all the tools we can so that they can be very, very successful. Let's take a brief look at some of what that looks like. So as I mentioned before, we have our Tribridge Training Center. This is a place where we can go and we can have different curriculums put together for different people. And this is important regardless of whether it's in a formalized training center like this or if you're just looking at your user base. Make sure that every classification of users that you have, from power users to end users to salespeople to managers, there's a training track in place. They can see what they need to do and how to use it, the application, but also that they've got some sort of a champion that they can call upon. They know that if they get stuck or if they get in a bind, there's someone they can turn to. And that's the whole concept of a training center. It's making sure that you know where you can go to get help, because there's absolutely nothing worse and nothing more infuriating than when you're in the middle of doing something and you just don't know where to go next, or something's confusing and it's not laid out properly. Having someone to turn to and having a piece of knowledge available to you is absolutely invaluable. And again, being able to refer back to that over and over again is super important as well. Some of our tools, as we talked about, serving content up to you is super important. It's just different ways of rendering information. So, in the context of I'm going to be in Tampa next week, and I'm going to visit with a customer. I'm only going to have an hour with that customer. I've got 6 hours after that before my flight leaves. Well, who else can I see that's in the area? And in traditional sense of tools, it's a little bit cumbersome to figure out, well, who is in Bradenton, who's in Clearwater, who's in South Tampa, who's up in Lutz that I can go and meet. But by bringing that information together through different tools, again, we're just socializing and surfacing information in a way that makes sense as an organization so I can be more effective in my job. Things like this are just another way of displaying information, but when it comes to a user's perspective, this makes all the difference in the world. From having a list of accounts to now being able to see, well, where are they and who's nearby. Again, the whole concept just being, let's serve up information in a way that makes sense and people can be more effective in what they're doing this way. Grid editor, another concept of just being faster at what you do. If we're looking at a list of accounts or a list of opportunities, and I know that I've got my pipeline report due to the sales manager tomorrow, if I can quickly whip through this and update my estimated close date, my probability, and my probability notes without having to open up each record individually to do that, that again is just an example of an increased and improved user experience. Now instead of being 7 mouse clicks to open an opportunity record, update the probability, update the estimated close date, update my last call notes, and save and close, I can do that all in one line. Boom, 3 seconds, boom, 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 next, boom, 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 next. I can spend my time on task instead of being 2 minutes on task and just being frustrated by it. I can actually whip through it, and now I can see in real time the value of the changes, and I can look at my pipeline and say, oh, wow, these have been sitting there a while. Why don't I, in aggregate, when I'm looking at a list like this, what can I do to move these things up? I know I'm going to get called on these things tomorrow. Let me spend more time on it. The whole concept, again, of being putting information to people in an efficient way that they can see the value and they can quickly move through the monotony of data entry and get to the value of why they're getting the data in the first place. Another concept, of course, being adoption dashboards, letting people see what's going on, reward people for the achievement of doing what we need them to do. So things like gamifying the application, making it fun. You know, if you think about how many people are happy about doing, you know, data entry and spending time on, you know, entering stuff in a CRM system is probably pretty low. But if any of you have kids that have an Xbox, how hard is it to get them off the thing at the end of the day? And really, what are they doing? They're moving around. They're doing very similar functions to what we do, but it's more fun. It's presented in a way that gives them value, gives them a sense of achievement and accomplishment. And by bringing that same concept back to your users is a humongous increase in productivity. An interesting concept was when we built out the user adoption and CRM rewards program for CRM, we looked around at different industries and saw how adoption and rewards worked. And one interesting use case came up for me that I really took to heart, and that was in a warehouse. These warehouse, you know, workers, their whole job is to pull picking tickets, and their job is to pull 100 picking tickets per hour, and get them in, and get them bundled, and get them shipped. And they had just a simple barcode scanner, so it's, you know, it's beep, beep, beep as they go through and collect the stuff they needed to collect and throw it in a box, and then it gets packed and sent out. And management was having a real difficult time with productivity. They needed to get to their goal of 100 units an hour, and they were really struggling. They're in the 80, 85, 90 units an hour. It's kind of the average across the different shifts that were doing this work. And so they made a really simple change. They swapped out the barcode guns for one of the units, and it just had a simple barcode, or it had a simple meter at the top of it that went from green, or from red to yellow to green as people got closer to their number of units for the hour, and then it reset at the end of the hour. And so it became a game. How many people can go to green in the hour? And they did this with one shift, and they left the regular guns at the other shift. And it was interesting that overnight, the people that had the red, yellow, green, just a simple meter showing how close they're getting to their goal, that their productivity went up almost immediately from 88 to 90 to 92 to 95 to eventually they were hitting their number very, very consistently. And then management was even able to increase the quota. So instead of just being 100 units an hour, it was 102 or 103 or 105 units an hour. And the team that saw it and they could get real-time feedback, yep, I'm doing it, yep, I'm getting feedback, and yeah, I'm getting positive reinforcement for what I'm doing, they were hitting the goals without having an increase in salary, without having an increase in headcount, without having an increase in anything else. They just had that much more reason to get themselves through it. They could see where they were and where they needed to go. And it was really, really interesting. So bringing the concept of make it fun, make it challenging, bring in some rewards into the work that you're doing is one of the greatest and easiest ways of getting adoption up there, because people like to be recognized for what they do. They like to get the level up feature and function. And by showing that to people, letting them see it, and then rewarding people in different ways for meeting those accomplishments is cannot be understated enough. And again, having the content of insights, and we talked about this briefly a few minutes ago, but the concept of serving up data. So as we're in there, how do what are some actionable things we can do here? Well, things like installing insights. This is a Microsoft tool. It's actually an ISV solution that's included with CRM Online. It's available for on-premise customers and cloud customers also. But just serve up data that you need for the customer without having to go hunt for it. And being able to let people see in one spot, these are the key pieces of information. Now you've got that much more detail to go with. It's incredible what simple things like that can do to make people say, wow, now I can't live without this application, instead of why do I have to use this thing? Another content thing that I wanted to speak just briefly about is the whole concept of industry search and content searching. So what does that mean? Well, we talked before about the fact that we've got data everywhere. You know, we probably have got SharePoint with tons and tons of great information, and I know at Tribridge, our marketing team does a tremendous job of building out one-pagers and battle cards of why this software is better than that software, or how our delivery team works better than whatever it is, or how we've met the point of view for this industry, whether we're in financial services or insurance or retail or whatever it is. But how do I get to it? Where do I find it? There's so much information out there. It's totally overwhelming to think about where do I go to find it and how do I get this information next. When we use technology today, we can serve up, and deliver information in context. So what does that mean? If you look over at the right side of my screen here in the opportunity record, you'll see this content of similar deals, similar sales scenarios. What that is that's bringing up context of other opportunities in the same industry, other opportunities of the same type, and oh, by the way, other content in different systems that is relevant. So if I'm talking about upgrading to 2015, which is my example here, well, wouldn't it be nice to know here's where the statement of work is for an upgrade? Or if we're competing with Salesforce on an opportunity, here's a Salesforce battle card, and not have to go look for it, but have the system serve it up to me in context so I can see it, and oh yeah, I need to pull that battle card in. Click on it, and now I've got the detail right in front of me. Those are some examples that are very concrete, but I think they're also very, very simple ways of pulling data in and, again, making the system do the work for your salesperson. So they're not looking for data, they're not doing data entry. They're calling customers, they're talking to people, they're being competitive in the time that they have, and the system is being smart now and pushing the data to them. It's really becoming their administrative assistant, if you will, by serving up information so it's at their fingertips when they need to see it. And by having this information smartly out there, that's when you get real value for all of your customers. So with that, we've got, I believe, about 5 minutes here, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to see if we have any questions out there.
Hey, Corey, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I feel like the Verizon commercial.
I can hear you now. All right, I'm just going to remind everybody, if you haven't already put a question, you've got one that you've thought of as we've been going, just go ahead and type that into the Q&A panel on that right-hand side, and we'll make sure we get to that. But I've got a few to get started on. So question 1 is from Tricia. What version of CRM does Adoption Essentials work with?
Sure. So the applications are one part of the Adoption Essentials. The entire program works across the entire industry. It actually spans beyond just the technology of CRM, but can work in a lot of different ways. The apps that we talked about and some of the ones that we showed today are available in a number of different versions, 2013, 2015. They're available on-premise. They're available in the cloud, so you're not limited, just like CRM doesn't limit you to a deployment option. All the tools work the same way as well. Now, different ISVs also work on multiple different versions. I've showcased a couple of them here, and we can certainly talk about others as well that are true productivity enhancers, and they work across the different versions as well.
All right. And then I've got one from John. What is the difference between doing this on my own and using Adoption Essentials?
Well, doing, any time that you're looking at software design, whether you're supporting an in-house implementation or you're looking at rolling CRM out to a customer, you can take the concepts and work through them on your own, which is, kind of like we talked about, is you can go out and you can exercise on your own and get into shape. But with the program that we've got and put together, the functionality, the meetings, the challenging, the challenger interviews that we do and so forth, we really are acting as your coach. We are your, your personal trainers, so to speak, in bringing the application to you to help you get better results in a shorter period of time. So the content that we talked about today, setting a vision, setting internal meetings, having recurring training, those are all things that you can do on your own. But absolutely having having Tribridge help you out is going to help you along the way to get to your goals a little bit faster.
All right. Angie wants to know, how do I get the Insights tool? I'm not sure if she means, and maybe Angie, you can just type in and make sure.
Yeah. So what she was talking about is Dynamics Insights. That's one of the things that I showed during the presentation here. If you are an active CRM Online customer, Insights is available at, there's different versions of it. The basic version of Insights is available at no additional charge. It's simply a solution package that you install and would configure. If you're on-premise, there is an annual charge for it. But if you'd like to follow up with us after that, we can certainly talk to you one-off on how to get that.
All right, I've got one more question. So, no, that's not true. I've had a few more come in.
Excellent.
Yeah, Joe wants to know, I have found that enabling insights in CRM 2013 forms causes conflicts with some customizations I've created. Is this a common issue with customized CRM organizations trying to implement the new insights and Yammer on older sites?
Sure, I'll take a quick stab at that, and if we want to have, again, please reach out afterwards. We can follow up with you after the call for more specific technical conversation. But typically, Insights is designed to render itself in a couple of different window formats. With 2015, they've gone to, CRM has actually got a 3-column wide format display by default, and Insights is now set up on a narrow column versus the wide column layout. I haven't seen a lot of problems with that rendering, although it does happen from time to time, and so we can certainly talk about what, some ways to resolve that for you. But overall, I haven't had a lot of problems with that, or I haven't seen a lot of problems with that.
So I did get a question from Nina in regards to the cost for Adoption Essentials programs. So maybe if you could just explain how that's rolled out and the versions, maybe on a high level.
Sure. So our Adoption Essentials program at Tribridge is actually set up in a couple of different ways. It's basically, at its core, it's an annual program that we enroll our customers in. It's based on per user count. And so for each user, we have different levels of accessibility. We have a core, a professional, and an enterprise level with different apps and different levels of functionality that we provide at the different levels.
Yeah, and we'd be happy. I did have one last question of somebody looking about where they can go to find out more information on adoption apps and Adoption Essentials. And we do have some information on our website, and we'll also, in our follow-up email, I'll be sending you a little bit more information as well. So I'm just double-checking that we're not missing anything. I am interested, Joe wants to know, I'm interested in more information on the view/editor functionality and how to enable it.
Sure. So I'm going to step back one question just real briefly. Those of you that have questions on Adoption Essentials of the program, if you go to our Tribridge website, we actually do have a whole page dedicated to our Adoption Essentials, and it's just off tribridge.com, and you can find that with information to the apps, the training events, and so forth that we have, and we're certainly happy to talk to you more about that in more detail. But just come out to our website or give us a shout, and we can talk in more detail for that. As far as the individual app, which was the second question that came out there, we definitely have the opportunity to work that with you. It's part of our solution stack that we have for folks that are in our program. So absolutely, let's touch base after this call, and we'll talk about how we can get that put together for you.
Okay, let me just double check. Yes, we had one more question about just today's recording. Nina, we are recording this webinar, and you can view it again at another time. We'll send you a link in our follow-up email. I think that's it, Corey. So just go to the next slide. Oh, yeah, maybe you and Chuck can cover that.
Sure. Chuck, did you want to touch base on this, or else I'll wrap up?
Mm-hmm. You're welcome to wrap it up.
All right, sure. So just real briefly, again, guys, we're right at the top of the hour, and we appreciate everyone's time sitting in today. Our big takeaways for CRM Success, and really what we hope that you found from our session today was, if you look at the top 5 things that are going to help a user be more successful in the application and how we can make adoption greater within our CRM application. First and foremost, just put that plan in place for corrections. We talked about before that the best laid plans don't ever go perfect, and we need to make adjustments along the way. So plan for that. Make sure that you've got time set into your budget in terms of resources and planning and everything else, that you can go back after go live. And remember that go live is day 1 of system success. and it is not the end of it, but it's the beginning of that long-term haul. So plan for course corrections, have meetings, have internal conversations with your users, and frequently ask what's going on. And from an IT or a delivery standpoint, make sure you put yourself in their shoes. It doesn't matter how cool the tool is. If the user won't use it, it's not cool at all. That's just the reality. So really focus on putting yourself in their shoes and find a way to make the system awesome for the user. You know, in terms of that, also create manageable goals, create realistic goals. Don't say that we're going to solve world hunger, overnight. We can do that down the road, but let's put something manageable in place. Make sure it's something that we can get to, that we can drive towards, and that people can see as a goal that's valuable, not a goal that defeats progress. You know, if you set a goal that is absolutely crazy unattainable, it almost becomes a turnoff, and people are like, I can't even do it, so why try? But if you make it an attainable goal where a person can see, all right, that makes sense, they're going to drive toward it, and they're going to work together, and they're going to find a way to make it happen. Again, as I talked about, industry context. Make sure that you are focusing yourself on the industry, the team, the department, the user group, and putting yourselves in their shoes, making sure that you have a point of view, like Chuck mentioned at the beginning, that focuses on them and puts them at the center of your universe so that they can be successful with what they do. User experience, again, is the whole thing. Find a way to put a Staples Easy button on the application. Put the information out there so that for every mouse click they put in, they're getting 3 mouse clicks worth of data back. And if you think about it in those terms, you're going to be in a great spot. And finally, from a customer experience standpoint, make sure that when users are using the application, they're getting themselves equipped to give the customer the greatest experience ever. As Chuck mentioned, if you think about that time you had an awesome experience at a call center or an awesome experience at whatever it was, and you went out and you told 3 and 5 and 10 people about it. If we're building the applications right, and we're putting the right tools out there, our customers are going to have a great experience, and our users are going to see the benefit from that.
Great, thanks, Corey. So I just wanted to Corey put up this last slide. It's got contact information for us. Obviously, we covered a lot of information today, and if you've got questions or would like additional information, here's some contact information for us, and Corey pointed out the Adoption Essentials area on our website as well. Like I said, we will be giving you the recording and a follow-up email, and I want to encourage you to please provide us some feedback on today's webcast. The survey will pop up at the end, and if you fill it out, then we will go ahead and put you in the running for that $100 Visa gift card that we have a quarterly raffle, and that will be at the end of March. So thanks again, Jason, Corey, Chuck, for everyone's presentation today, and we look forward to having you back online again soon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you all. Take care.